We went to Ghana about 4 years ago at the International Early Childhood Conference there. We were asked to present the model. And one of the issues that was uppermost in the minds of many of the educators was the same question you raised. You can't take anecdotes to government. We need data. And at that time, we had done a cost-benefit analysis here in Jamaica, as well as an impact study. And everybody wanted a copy of the cost-benefit study because they said they need to show how the cost, will it be cost-effective? And your study has shown that the RCP is cost-effective. And more exciting data, which I don't think I can comment, and Susan will do that, is even more recent and even more effective in terms of how cost-effective the RCP is.
Well, I think she's leading me into a priority subject for the next segment of our discussion. And so I want to thank you all for sharing this with us. I truly am blown away that something as simple as this. And so it is again to note how regional creativity, Caribbean creativity, that we need to pay attention to our own, concepts and our intellectual property too. And in such an area as early childhood development, having such a broad, deep, high impact, it's truly inspiring. We're going to come back to this. We still want to talk some more, learn some more at length and at depth and at breadth about the impact. We want to talk about the impact on the caregivers themselves. We want to talk some more about the impact on parents and to learn some of the methodology that was used in developing this study, and in particular, why is this necessary now as something for governments, the private sector, the community, and you and I to think about. We'll be back.
A picture is worth 1,000 words. Got it? Taking care of us can be so easy.
Take good care of the children.
A picture is worth 1,000 words. Got it? Taking care of us can be so easy.
Take good care of the children.
Welcome back. We continue our panel discussion on the Roving Caregivers Program, and we're learning that it is very well documented that early childhood development, the impact of education at that early stage, has long-range social and economic benefits to all nations. As a matter of fact, the documentation coming out of the impact study on the program show that in the long run, early childhood stimulation impacts the dropout rate at high school. It impacts the crime engagement levels. It impacts the use of illegal drugs in a positive way. It impacts the way new parents are able to parent their children. And it cuts down on the amount of neglect and abuse that young children experience from their parents. We want to therefore focus now on the cost-benefit factor of this process. And Susan, what is exciting about it is that it is not very costly. Can you explain so we really get that?
Indeed, it isn't an expensive program to implement and certainly to take to scale. We recently got some very preliminary findings back from our research team, and what it suggests by way of cost is for Jamaica, which is a well-established program, as you would be aware, it's $59 per child per year. To be involved in the Roving Caregivers Program.
Say that again. Because
$59 US per child per year. And this is working with a group of 1,500 children here in Jamaica.
So let's say that's 5,000 Jamaican dollars approximately.
Yes, yes. And even more exciting is that they have suggested that the more you take it to scale or increase the numbers, the lower the costs become, because the overhead costs remain the same. So what that is saying, in effect, is take it to scale. It becomes even more cost-effective. And that doesn't even touch on the benefits that we spoke about in the last segment of the program in terms of the ripple effect that it has on so many other players. But this is about the cost that is
well, you know, I literally had to consciously close my mouth a while ago because, you know, those figures are absolutely Stupendous.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely stupendous. I want to welcome Jennifer Astafan as the Executive Director of the Caribbean Center for Development Administration, and you have that acronym CARICAD. So, Madame, if you are partly responsible directing development administration in the region, how do you intend to ensure that such a program as this does, in fact, filter through the region?
Well, if I can backtrack a little bit, there was a time when some of our stakeholders would have asked, why are we involved in such a program? Why is it a flagship? But we're involved in the business of development, we're involved in the business of government, and we're involved in the business of capital development. And we cannot see capital development as starting at a point of adulthood only.
Right.
And if the work that we do and the service of governments is directed towards the alleviation of poverty and the ill effects of poverty, then we feel that we need to be involved in that level of development.
Do you think that there is almost a re-education that is going to occur through the impact of this roving caregivers program to have our governments, which are mostly male dominant in terms of leadership, appreciate the impact of child development on national development and productivity?
I think most definitely there has to be a certain level of education,
yes.
A certain level of influence in policy that will be absolutely necessary. And given the concern for crime in the region,
yes.
It would be very difficult to see how a government could not conceive this as part of their long-term strategy for stemming crime in the region.
Right. And so, therefore, you are seeing this as a program that is likely to receive support not just from CARICOM, but from other development agencies regionally.
And beyond that, to the private sector who have an interest and a concern about the quality of citizens that we would be putting out. The issues of concern about self-esteem of children, and attempting to have interventions almost when children are in secondary schools on self-esteem, when we could start at such an early age, you know.
And we already see the paltry results that that has produced. And so, Patricia McPherson, again, being in the core role, responsibility of education in CARICOM, how will you see the public sector driving this?
I think in terms of, as we mentioned before, when we think about the evidence that such a study has brought to the fore, it substantiates what literature has already said. You mentioned the fact that children tend to, once children are stimulated early, the attrition rate is lowered. We talked about the impact of crime and violence on children, the whole aspect of early stimulation in terms of their cognitive development. Children tend to stay in school a lot longer. So in that sense, one cannot but see where governments have to be responsive to this whole aspect of early childhood education.
I want to talk a little bit to Judith Alpucci about the sustainability and the need then for not just public sector government direction and investment, but also at a broader base, the participation of the private sector. Has this happened in Belize, and how do you see that happening regionally?
We have not really tapped into private sector, but I certainly think that on a whole, with this social program or any social program, it has to be a collective responsibility. I do believe, and we've articulated very well, the short-term, long-term, medium-term benefits of ECD, of early childhood development. And so I think because it is such a fundamental investment